Hi, welcome back to another set of notes. One thing that we are going to keep in mind as we go through history is the interconnectedness of the world, and that's what today's conversation is about. So, in the year 1500, when our course starts, you have international trade happening already. It's something that's been happening for centuries at this point. There's evidence that, for instance, the Phoenicians were conducting international trade thousands of years ago. And so it's just a continuation of that process. It's certainly a much slower process than what we would have in today's global markets, because there's either by foot or by camel or by horse or by boat, driven by like oars or sails, not powered boats at all. But know that trade and that interconnectedness of the world has always been a piece of our puzzle. And so what we have is, it's 5 different regions of trade, essentially, different routes of trade. That last square on the bottom there actually combines 2 technically separate trade routes. But there are Europe connected to the Middle East, so I've combined them into one just to make it easier. I'm going to toggle back and forth between this chart that you can see on your screen now and this map, which right now is blank, but I'm going to use the Active Inspire tools that I have here to draw it in so you guys can visually see the regions of the world that are connected. I think that will help. So what I would suggest for these particular notes is that you spend a little bit of time, maybe even just create this chart. I don't think it's as important to figure out a way to recreate a map or anything, but I do think that maybe the chart is something that you want to keep in mind, even if you just sort of screenshot the end or make index cards or something like that. You could even make your own Quizlet set out of the route itself and the goods and the empires, just so that you can keep those pieces of information in your mind. All right, so let's get started. The first one on our list is the Silk Roads, which you probably have heard about before, right? The Silk Roads are going to connect China to the Middle East. Chinese goods, predominantly silk, porcelain, tea, paper, and the compass. There's several other things, gunpowder. But the Chinese have a lot of high quality trade goods that are really sought after in the rest of the world, which meant that a lot of trade was moving from China to the Middle East in order to move product. So I'm going to click the pen and I'm going to start with, I can get it to work, this red right here for the Silk Road, right? And this is China here, and it's going to go all the way across to the Middle East. So if it doesn't have to be exact, obviously, because trade routes they're not paved formal roads, right? They're just directional movement that could have gone lots of different places. It's cutting across the Middle East. You could take an offshoot that goes down to Saudi Arabia. You could take an offshoot through the Khyber Pass that goes down into India, right? You could move left and right, east and west with goods. You could access it from lots of different places in China. So it doesn't have to be exact, obviously, but just to give you sort of an idea of the route that you would take to get from Constantinople or later Istanbul into China. All right, the next one on our list is the TransSaharan. So if you see there that it says Sahara, right, the TransSaharan is in Africa. It's going to cross Africa. And the commodities that are moving are salt and gold predominantly, as well as the Islamic religion, the faith that the merchants are going to bring with them back and forth. Helps spread the Islamic faith through Northern Europe and into Northern Africa and into Western Africa from the Middle East. The empire involved is largely the Songhai, connected to the Ottomans in the Middle East and to the Arabian Peninsula and the Arabic kingdoms there. So if I switch this over to another color, let's go with, we're going yellow for the trend. Whoops, didn't click on it. Pen and yellow for the TransSaharan. This is the Songhai, right? So this is one piece, and then over here is the Middle East where it needs to connect to, right? So I generally just draw like a rectangle and know that lines go across in multiple places. You couldn't do a lot necessarily of connecting across because of the Sahara, but there are ways to trek across the Sahara safely with enough water resources and that sort of thing. But you also could just circumvent and go completely around either the northern boundary or the southern boundary of the Sahara, which would be an easier traveling. And you could connect into the villages and the kingdoms of this section of sub-Saharan Africa, this section of the continent just below the Sahara Desert. All right, the next one up is the South China Sea and Southeast Asia maritime routes. So maritime is one of your vocabulary words, right? Maritime means of the sea. I'll put it down here too since it's both. If I could spell sea correctly. So these are maritime routes that are going to connect China to southern and Southeast Asia. And along that, you're going to move the products that come from Mughal India as well as the products that come from China. So we've already talked about how silk, porcelain, tea, paper, and the compass come from China. That's just these top ones. But also that there are spices and textiles and gems coming from the Mughals in India. So India is a predominantly Hindu country, but the Mughals are controlling them at the time our class begins. The Mughals control India for a couple of hundred years, and they're Muslims that came in from essentially Pakistan. So for South China and Southeast Asia maritime, why do I keep doing that? Goodness, I'm so sorry. We're gonna go, no! I'm going to put my glasses on because you're gonna have a glare on my face. Oh, and that's an awkward angle. You'll have a bit of a glare on my face, but it'll make it easier for me to see as I don't have my contacts in. Goodness gracious. It would help if I used the right tools. All right, South China and Southeast Asia. So here's obviously China, and here's the Mughals. And these are below this, if I moved that box around, are some, like the Philippines and some of the Pacific Islands. So those are also going to be connected. We're going to come through to India, and it's going to connect all these islands down here. And help. There's lots of things that happen. You can connect it to Vietnam if you want. There's lots of things that are going to connect, and Buddhism is also going to spread. But the textiles that come out of India, the silks that come out of China, they're all going to move along the sea. It's much easier to go that way because right here, if I switch, let me switch to a different color. Right here, remember, are the Himalayas. So you're not going to cross this way. That would be very dangerous and very difficult. So most of the time, if you're trying to hit eastern China, you're going to go around by ship rather than trying to circumvent the Himalayas. All right, Indian Ocean maritime route, same thing, right, by sea. But in this case, it's going to keep going. It's going to go west, and it's going to connect Mughal India to the Middle East. So when we go back to our map here, let's go. We haven't gone green yet, have we? Green. You've got India here, and we're going to go up the Red Sea to connect the Middle Eastern sections to India. You also technically could go this way. I'm sure some people traveling from India that are going past Pakistan and into, this is Iran. But you're trying to get more into the Ottoman Empire, the heart of the Ottoman Empire. There's a more populated region here than there would be in Iran. All right. And then Western European and Northern European routes. One is by land and one is more by sea. Though the land routes also use the river, so it's a little bit of both. But they're importing things from the Middle East, like astronomy, algebra. This says the algebraic numeral system. It means the Arabic numeral system. I need to change that. I'm not sure why. Oh, and that's an image, so I can't alter that, so I'll just grab my pen. This is the Arabic numeral system, where we use like the number 1, 2, 3 instead of the Roman system of using the I's and the V's, etc. So it's going to connect the Ottomans to European countries like France and Spain. Having a little bit of stumbling over my words. Sorry about that. But, that's real life. So, Northern Europe to the Black Sea is first. Here's the Black Sea here above Anatolia, right above where the Ottoman Empire is. And it's going to connect to these northern sections, to Germany, to modern-day Poland, etc. Because that would be significantly faster than going along this Western European route. So let me change colors. Let's go orange. You know what? That's going to be too close. Let's go blue. Dark blue. Western. Whoop, that should be an E. Western. Is going to connect France and Spain and Portugal to Italy, Greece, and the Ottoman Empire. It also could go this way, right? But again, depending on which countries you're serving as to whether or not, like if you're an English merchant, you're probably not going to traverse the English Channel and then offload from your ship onto like horse carts and trek across Europe. That's a long, arduous task if you're trying to connect to the Ottoman Empire. You'd be better off just getting on a ship and sailing around through the Strait of Gibraltar right here than going the other way. So that's why it looks strange. That's why it sort of feels weird. But these people in this section of Europe, this northern section, would be closer connected to go this way, but it's faster to go around for the English. So just keep in mind, the keys takeaways is that, we've been an interconnected world for a very long time. Most of the European countries are desiring the products that are made in Asia, the silks and the porcelains, the textiles of India, the gemstones, things that you can't get in Europe. And so you have to import them, you have to trade for them. But the overwhelming majority of Europeans are not still having access to these things. These are very lavish, very expensive things that only the very elite are going to have access to. Think about salt, right? Salt is super important because salt is what you're going to use pre-refrigeration to preserve meat, right? So that's a life commodity. Spices, right, are going to make everything just taste a little bit better. It's going to improve some of your quality of life. You can live without spices, but I want you to imagine a world where all you eat is plain chicken, right? Boil it up and eat it. It's not terrible, right? It's not the worst meal on the planet, but it's not great. But if you take your chicken and you roast it and you add herbs and you add spices to that chicken, infinitely better, right? Pepper comes from India, right? So think about how much better food is with flavor. That's why those spices are important. That's why that trade is important. It's because everybody wants it. You don't have to have it to live, but it makes things better, right? You don't have to have silk to live, but when your choices are to wear silk when it's 95 degrees outside or wear wool when it's 95 degrees outside, you choose the silk, right? So it's just improving all of our lives interconnectedly. So, all right, as always, have any questions, let me know. Bye.